Well, good afternoon and welcome to Let's Talk on WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, on this publisher of the Washington Informer on this snowy day in Washington, D.C. You know, we keep hearing the threat of snow. We keep thinking it's going to snow, and sometimes it really doesn't. But we've had 3 days of snow this week. Martin Luther King holiday on Monday, which was supposed to have been a clear day, and it seems as though we started getting snow that morning, and it lasted all day long, and then it got heavier on Tuesday, and here it is Friday. Friday, what is today? January the 19th, and we've been having a nice little flurries of snowfall all day long. So it's winter. No complaints. And I think with schools closed and people in, maybe our viewership will go up today. So if you're in, kind of give us a shout out here on our YouTube channel or on Facebook. Let us know you're there. And we certainly are happy to have you joining us today as we celebrate the remarkable individuals joining us who are trailblazers, paving the way for future generations. We'll be talking to the phenomenal CEO of the American Institutes of Architects, Lakisha A. Woods, as she shares her journey of breaking glass ceilings and making lasting changes in the architectural industry. We'll dive into the captivating world of dance with Grace Johnson, founder and artistic director of Neema Dance Collective. And so excited to have with us Marcus Batchelor, National Political Director of People for the American Way, who'll be with us to talk about how we will be, or they will be, or how young people, Black voters, will be engaged in this upcoming presidential election and ways we will be mobilizing young voices. So before we begin these conversations, I always like to show you, and I don't have one here with me because I thought I'd be in the office today and I didn't bring a copy home, but Chevy will show that on the screen, a copy of this week's Washington Informer. We highlighted the Martin Luther King Parade, which took place on January 15th, on Monday. Tremendous outpouring of participants and viewers. One of the longest that has taken place in Ward 8 in Southeast DC. And despite the weather, folks showed up. And so, of course, we want to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the city, and a great story about Tony Lewis Jr. and his work in supporting his father, but also working with returning citizens. So great stories throughout the Washington Informer. So if you haven't picked up a copy, make sure you do. And on the inside is our Martin Luther King special issue. And in there, what I'm most excited about, recently, the Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute hosted and I think I talked about it last week, a essay contest with elementary, middle, and high school students. And those essay winners were awarded last Saturday at the Martin Luther King Library. And we are pleased to run the essays of the first place winners in those three categories. So you'll get to hear the voices of young people in this special issue, which is inside of this week's Washington Informer. So if you haven't picked up a copy, you can always read the digital editions of both publications, and always online at WashingtonInformer.com. We hope you will visit us there at WashingtonInformer.com. And while you're there, we hope that you'll sign up and become a regular subscriber. It's free to the Washington Informer. So if it's a snowy day like today, you can still get a copy of the paper because it will be sent to you through your email, as well as a daily update. We call it WIN Daily, an update of our stories that run every single day. And we do breaking news because our very own Kayla Benjamin was out on yesterday with the unfortunate explosion that took place on Marion Barry Avenue. Fortunately, the daycare center next door was able to get its children, young people out safely. And so it was, we were there covering that story as well, and you can read it online at the Washington Informer. And while you're watching the show today, please share this broadcast on all of your social media platforms. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to share the broadcast. Also, follow us on IG, X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Nextdoor, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So we want to make sure that we are where you are, and you can find us anytime you want to catch up on the news in DMV. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and that's Washington Informer TV. No spaces, straight Washington Informer TV. So sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of these help the Washington Informer to maintain or sustain our publication, because we survive off of advertising and donations. And so just your presence and your support means so much to us to allow us to continue to keep you informed. We're going to turn now to our week's broadcast by Curtis Knowles, who's catching us up on the news you can use.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters.
Prince George's largest town has celebrated another historic milestone with the swearing-in of Dwayne Preston as the first Black police chief in Bowie's history. Preston, a veteran of the PG County Police Department, served as the acting chief from September until January 2nd. He is only the third chief since the Bowie Police Department was founded in 2006. The Bowie State alum was surrounded by friends and family while sworn in, and congratulations poured in from neighboring police and civic leaders, including former Bowie Police Chief John Nesky and Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis. The Baltimore Sun newspaper has been purchased by David D. Smith, the executive chairman of the media conglomerate Sinclair Incorporated. Smith said he acquired the Baltimore Sun media from the investment firm Alden Global Capital in a private deal reached on Friday. He did not disclose how much he paid in the agreement. Smith bought the paper with his own assets independently of Sinclair, which is known for its ownership of local television news stations across the U.S. He said, however, that there could be partnerships between the two brands in the future, as he will remain the executive chairman at Sinclair. Police around the D.C. region are on the lookout for a group that's targeting ATMs at convenience stores using a tool known as the Jaws of Life, which is more commonly used to rescue people trapped in car crashes. The heist happened on 8 different locations just a few days ago, and then at least 6 more in about a 3-hour time span early Wednesday morning. In almost all these cases, the businesses that are targeted were 7-Eleven convenience stores.
Thank you so very much, Curtis, and welcome back to Let's Talk on WIN TV. Before we bring on our first guest, Lakisha A. Woods, who is the CEO of the American Institute of Architects, I'm going to take a brief look at this video.
The 1960s was a decade of enormous confrontation.
The country was in turmoil, and the architectural profession was just not doing anything to advance civil rights in the country. And they just were silent on the whole issue. And the cities were burning.
It was very important that Whitney Young would come and address the AIA convention, at which there were very few, if any, people of color.
Wow, that's powerful. And it's I'm very excited to welcome our guest, Lakisha A. Woods, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the American Institute of Architects. She's also an author of Never Get Their Coffee, Empowering Fearless Leadership. And so, Lakisha, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
We've got so much to talk about right on this snowy day, so much to talk about. But I want to start, first of all, of course, for those who don't know, Whitney Young was the executive director of the National Urban League at that time, and he was very concerned about the lack of representation in the American Institute of Architects, particularly as it related to Black home ownership and issues dealing with Black housing. So I think that's why he was invited, and he sort of, made the call for more diversity within the organization. So let me get you to respond to that first about, how we were able to, or the impact that Whitney Young had on the organization.
Well, it is very clear that AIA was moved by the speech that Whitney Young gave. That was now over 50 years ago. But AIA I came on board as the CEO of AIA 2 years ago. And one of the reasons I wanted to come to this organization is because their strategic plan has two goals. One is climate action and to advance climate action, and the other is racial and gender equity. And I've spent my whole career in associations related to the built environment, but I've never seen anybody put in writing that they want racial and gender equity. And that's a hefty, lofty goal. I mean, it's truly shooting for the stars, because let's remember some statistics. When Whitney M. Young spoke to AIA, less than 2% of architects were Black. And Robert Easter just won the Whitney M. Young Award. They created an award in his honor, and he is a professor. And he said in his speech 50 years ago, 2% of architects were Black. And today, 2% of architects are Black.
Wow.
We have so far to go. And the good news is that they are making moves in the right direction. One, just really putting, as I would almost say, airing our dirty laundry. And I went on the website, and AIA, this organization has broken down their demographics for their membership, for their leadership, for committees, juries. And they've also worked to, as I would say, before George Floyd, back at least in 2017, 2018, they had started doing diligent work to ensure that not just we have a way forward for more women and minorities to have access to leadership roles within the organization, putting together guides to equitable practice, these guides that architecture firms can use to ensure that they're establishing the right culture. And it breaks it down almost into 10 different areas where they should focus to ensure more minorities have success in the firm. But also, they created steps to ensure that juries that assign awards, because think about it, people get elevated in roles because they've won awards. Well, if there's no diversity in the people who are selecting the award winners, well, then you're not really going to have that fair, equitable opportunity. So they've really put steps in place before most organizations in the built environment did. And so I'm eager to be here. And now this year, our 2024 president, the 100th president of AIA, is Kimberly Dowdell. She is an African-American woman, the first African-American woman to take on the role. And she has really just been blazing trails already, about 19 days into the job. And I just am really thrilled about what lies ahead, because we can talk about the past, but I can't fix the past. What we can do is ensure a more equitable future.
So tell me, Lakisha, what was your road to where you are, the position that you are as CEO? What was your journey, particularly as it relates to the profession that you're representing?
So I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland in College Park, go Terps. And really, I went on a job interview to sort of have practice on job interviews. And it was at the National Ready Mix Concrete Association. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what an association was, but I went to just practice interviewing. And by the time I got home, there was an offer letter and benefits package sitting on my doorstep. And I was so impressed by the speed at which they offered me the job, I took it. But it was a marketing manager job. And I went the traditional old-fashioned route of working my way from, that first job out of college and worked my way up through the built environment. I went from there to work for the Associated General Contractors of America. So working with general contractors, and went from there to working for the National Association of Home Builders, where I spent the majority of my career. When I left there, I was the chief marketing officer. And then from there, I was asked to lead as the CEO for the National Institute of Building Sciences. And that organization was actually created by Congress to remove the silos in the built environment and to be a convener for the space, because the building industry is just by nature very siloed. People tend to be, I'm a contractor, I'm an architect, I'm an engineer, and not necessarily are those groups working together. And that's part of our challenge. But of course, everywhere I've been, diversity has been a major issue. In the home building space, it was 90% white male. So when 50% of the country is female, when such a large percentage of our country is diverse, we need an industry and a profession that represents, the makeup of the society that we're in. And so coming to AIA, it had always been a dream to work for the architects because I have such an appreciation for what they do. And now having the opportunity to lead, especially in a time like this, it is a dream come true.
And when you say especially at a time like this, I mean, what makes this moment in time so significant?
Yeah, I was on a call with our officers last week, and we all looked around the screen and said, this is the first time in the history of AIA that they've had an all-female officer team. And I think many organizations are really just now recognizing not just that having a diverse thought, diverse people within their leadership is important, but they're also recognizing the dollars and cents behind it. We're making significant change and progress within this organization, and our members are seeing, they're seeing advancement when they diversify their leadership teams. Our largest architecture firms are coming together and they're pulling out their data, and they said some of it's not pretty, but they're now taking the time to say, what do we do to fix it? How do we improve our culture? How do we increase the number of diverse architects we have in our firm? And it really starts back right in school, because in school today, I think the number of men to women graduated from architecture school, it's about 50-50. So we've got an even representation of men and women coming out of the space, and about 41% of those in architecture school are from an underrepresented community or diverse population. So we have the numbers in school. We're doing so much better than we were in the past. But when it's the path to licensure, that's where we are losing people. And so either coming into the firm, they either decide to go a different route and not go the path of architecture, or they choose not to get licensed. Or although we know we've identified that there is a challenge, we haven't necessarily taken all the right steps to make improvements. And so I've found that it is my calling to be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations by telling people what I'm seeing, where I'm seeing conflict, and how we can make improvements. The reason they call it unconscious bias is because it is unconscious. And I've talked to members and told them about where I've seen disparities in how even a female leader has been treated versus a male leader, things that I've witnessed. And then I'll talk to members at a reception and it's almost like a confessional. Oh, you know what? You're so right. I saw this happen at my firm. And what do we do to make change? So no one's ever said it out loud. Well, I'm screaming it from the rooftop if I can, because if we talk about it, we can make change. And we just have to be comfortable saying where there are problems, identifying them, and also talking about how to make improvement. These are the steps forward. I'm not going to sit here and beat your head about what you did wrong. I'm going to tell you how you have to make change so that we can improve as a society, because architects, the work that they do shapes all the spaces where we live, work, learn, and play. It impacts everything, our health, our equity, and we need diverse voices to shape our community.
So, I mean, it's Black History Month, of course, and it's one of those times when we sit back and take note of the pioneers in all industries. And architecture industry, I would think, is one of those where we have some true heroes and sheroes that we don't often recognize. I mean, I know I might be putting you on the spot, but, if you were to raise up some, and then to look at, whether Black architecture firms are still growing or are we losing them? What could you tell us about the state of the Black-owned firms in the US?
One of the, right before I actually had my interview for this job, I had the opportunity to share the stage with Curtis Moody from Moody Nolan Architects. And he spoke about some of the challenges that he faced as the owner of he has a large architecture firm, and he has a very diverse team, right? It's not a black and white. He has people that represent all walks of life within that firm. And what he shared on the stage in a room full of people for a different organization that was broadly not diverse. I talked about what we were seeing when I was at my previous organization, what we were doing to make change. He talked about some of the things that people didn't think about, where he would bid for a job, and when he went in to give his pitch, that sometimes the owners would say, well, yes, what you've offered or what we're looking at looks nice, but we worked with a Black architect before, and we were burned, so we're not going to go down that path again. And he said, I've never heard anyone say, well, I worked with that white architect before, so we're not going to, we got burned, so we're not going to use a white architect again. And it's sometimes that simple comparison, it was an aha moment in the room where people said, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we really just need to share those stories. And one of the key initiatives that I saw that was important for AIA is that we may not have a large percentage of African American architects or Asian architects, Hispanic architects. Those numbers are low, but what we do have the ability to do is showcase their work and show them shining. So often, it's like when I think about women, and really when I was writing my book, you always hear these stories of the struggle, right? Whenever I'm looking up, I was just looking up, top female architects. The only person I could find, Zaha Hadid, right? And she's passed, great architecture, love it. But that's the only person I could find online. And it's because if there was a story about a woman who was an architect, it was a story about the struggle instead of their success. I want to see their great work. I want to showcase their wins. We can always talk about the challenges, but if you don't show people the greatness of diverse architects, if you don't show the greatness of diverse people, then no one will see their future. And so, as the phrase always goes, if you can see it, you can be it. And what we did this past year in 23 is we created a video series called Future Focused. And it was highlighting women and minorities or leaders who have supported women and minorities in this space. And so every Friday, you would see a short video, just talking about a great project that they enjoyed or a story that impacted their path to architecture, to licensure. And just doing that, showcasing those different faces and voices that are a part of this space, to me was important, because when I travel around to schools and talk to those students, they ask, what does my future hold? Will I have a chance to excel or grow or lead if I go into architecture? What's that path to licensure? Is it arduous? Will I have support or mentors? So we need to just continue to showcase the great talent that exists. And I think it will help motivate those that are thinking about going down that path, that if they see someone that looks like them, they're more likely to keep moving forward.
Before we end, because this has been great, and I'm looking forward to maybe having more conversations as the stories unfold, but you did write a book. I mentioned it earlier, and you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, called Never Get Their Coffee, Empowering Fearless Leadership. Talk to us about, why you wrote this book and what people, should expect to get from reading it.
Well, part of the reason I wrote the book was I kept having the same conversations with women. What I found, and what it was a tool for me, I started sharing stories or thought leadership on LinkedIn, and a publisher had reached out and said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And when I put this together, it was to answer some questions to people about sometimes the challenges that we face as women, some habits that we may get in about unnecessarily apologizing for things that are not our fault, and no need to use that frame of reference, but also to all people who are leaders to move past those biases, to recognize that the terminology that we use and how we frame what leadership looks like, it matters, that the training starts when people are young, and what I've learned from my daughter and how important it is to think about everything from, I call her daughter, my daughter's bear. Is it always a he? Because it seems like it's always a he. Or is leadership, when someone's in leadership, do we always refer to the doctor or the lawyer or the architect as a man, or are they also women? So how we frame leadership, but also just how we get out of some of our bad habits that we have, not just as women, but as people. And what has been really exciting for me is that the number of women who have been impacted by the stories, I felt like the book was complete when I received stories from the people that were in my community, the people that I knew as thought leaders that also shared a closing to each of the chapters. And to see the experience of a friend that's an attorney and how she was treated versus a man going up from, coming right out of college into the firm, and how she was treated versus a man for, when leading as a woman of color, and just the different experiences that we have. It was so important to share my input, because now what I'm hearing from people out in the space is I have my own story, or there's someone who's experiencing the same thing I am, and it made them understand that they're not alone. And what was, I think, more shocking to me were the number of executives, women leading multi-million-dollar organizations that said this was really useful, and also reminded me of maybe some bad habits I'm getting into and how I can improve. And so I am thrilled to have had the opportunity to share it with people. And it was maybe a sign from God that the book came out the same day I started this job, because gender equity is very much a passion point for me. Racial equity, very much a passion point. So it is, again, that's probably part of why I call this a dream job. So.
And one of the things I want to ask, because, when you think about titles of anything, it's always sometimes harder, even though the whole production's been completed, then you have to go back and what am I going to call this? So I don't know what your process was. And I'm wondering, never get their coffee, which sort of is self-explanatory when it comes to women in leadership or women striving for leadership. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering, what was the alternate title that you thought about for the book?
I had the title before I had the book.
Okay.
It was my very first job, and I watched a woman executive be asked to go get coffee for clients that came into a meeting, and it was her meeting. And I was like a brand new person that could have definitely gone to get coffee, but they sent her, and she missed all the content that she was supposed to cover, and a man answered questions for her. And I said to myself right there, I am never going to get their coffee. So I had this title long ago, and every time I had one of those experiences, or I witnessed a woman being mistreated, or I witnessed minority being mistreated, I just started typing little information. I'm not going to do this, and other people need to be aware of what's happening so that we don't, duplicate that effort.
So before we go, Lakisha, just a quick question, because we talked about, the journey, the road into architecture, and particularly young people that may have some desire. Of course, they get stopped along the way, as you said, because of some of the challenges. But if there's somebody out there listening right now that thinks, when I go to college, I want to, prepare to become an architect, what does the organization provide as far as resources, scholarships, internships, any of that? Can you just share that with us briefly?
Yes, thank you for asking. Well, one, on AIA.org, our website, you can find a lot of resources for students, emerging professionals. We do have scholarships through our Architects Foundation. So the Architects Foundation provides scholarships specifically for minorities and other underrepresented groups. We desperately need funding. So for anybody out there who could be a funder, to help pour more dollars into those scholarship funds. Right now, I think about 20 people can get through the scholarship program each year, but that's not going to help solve our 2% number. We've got to grow past 2% as far as African-American architects. And so everything that we can do to provide resources to you, there are a ton of them. Please go to our website, and we would love to see you continue on. And what I do ask is, if you hear someone treat you in a way that you don't believe is right, know that there's someone else out there that will treat you the way you deserve. So don't give up, keep pushing forward, and find someone who will embrace you and keep you in this industry, because we desperately need more architects.
Wonderful. Fantastic. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. I'm wishing Kimberly Dowdell, your new, what is she? The new president, right, of the organization. I wish her much success. I wish you much success. And hopefully, when we meet again, sometime soon that you'll be able to say, Denise, we've moved from 2 to 3
I'll take it.
or more. Sounds
Moving forward, advancing, whatever it takes. Thank
exactly.
you so much for your time, Denise. Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're going to keep going here. That was a really great conversation. I hope you got something out of it. And I want to move on now and talk to our next guest, who is Grace Johnson, who is the founder and artistic director of the Neema Dance Collective. So we're going from architecture to dance. And for some reason, I think there's still a connection in there somewhere. But I think, is Neema available? Is she here?
These are all of our students of Neema Dance Collective presenting Soul.
Wow, I am so excited. I can't, I feel like I need to go to a concert like really quickly because these young people are so fantastic. Welcome, Grace. How are you?
I'm doing well. Every time I see the kids, I get so like overjoyed. I'm like a mama, so proud of all them babies. Every time I see that video clip. So thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. So now give us a little bit background on the organization and how it got started. Yeah, and how you've grown.
Oh, yes. Neema Dance Collective is my baby. When I was pregnant with my second daughter, Dawson, God called me to open this studio. I had graduated from college and came home, completed a master's program, and everything just kept going back to dance, back to dance. I started doing private lessons, and my private lessons became overbooked. And so I said, let's go ahead and open the studio. I opened that studio with about 17 children, myself and my best friend, and we've grown to about almost 300 starting this season. So we've grown. We offer 25 plus different dance styles. We start training at age 18 months. I tried the curriculum out on my daughter. Like I said, I was pregnant with her when I started the studio, and we've just been growing and growing, different locations and adding value and adding leadership, and we've just been here servicing the students and having a good time doing it.
So when you say different locations, where are those locations?
So we have Temple Hills, and Temple Hills expanded recently. And now we have like an acrobatics facility, a gym, if you will. And then we also have District Heights. We do have another location coming in that area. We've also expanded to Georgia.
The state of Georgia?
The state of Georgia.
Not Georgia Avenue.
Not Georgia Avenue, although I don't mind Georgia Avenue, but also the state of Georgia.
That's amazing. So what is your background as far as dance is concerned?
As far as dance is concerned, I've been training since about age 3 or 4, and I began in the DMV. I had dance classes at Fletcher Johnson, or the old Fletcher Johnson, right in DC. And my parents from there took me to the Christian Dance Academy in Clinton, Maryland. And from there, I attended Suitland Visual Performing Arts program. But while I was there, I also attended, the great dance academies. We're talking about Debbie Allen and the Ailey School and Dance Theater of Harlem and Maryland Youth Ballet. In college, I attended the Greensboro Ballet. So I've had extensive training pretty much my whole life, but started right here in the DMV.
And as that little girl, who started dance really at a young age and pursued it, what was your dream?
Oh, my dream was honestly to be a professional dancer. It wasn't until I really got into my Suitland High School curriculum that I really got into teaching. And I really wanted to choreograph. And then that became my passion. I want to choreograph and I want to, put on pieces and I want to train entertainers. And that became my thing. And I took that and I ran with it. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
What do you think, when now I'm going back to my cheerleader days, right? And I had I don't know if Miss Jefferson is watching. She's our cheerleader coach at Rabeau Junior High School. But she was very strict disciplinarian. I mean, it's just every move we had to make had to be synchronized. There were no stars. We were all a star, one big star. And I look at dance groups now, and I'm wondering, I see that's part of the training, in making sure that young people sort of understand their own what they bring to the table, but how they can work with other people. Talk about the benefits of being in a dance program like yours.
Yes. I believe that dance is both an art and a sport. I believe that dance is both individual and group work. So dance programs, good ones, will teach you both leadership skills, discipline, and time management, tapping into your creativity. And when they are performing in a group, they know how to rely on each other. And then we have opportunities for soloists to perform so that they know that it's just them out there. So I think that dance program is a good place to begin to learn how to work by yourself and how to be productive in a group setting. We have the children hone in on their individual talents and then what the group can do together to make them all shine bright like stars, just like you said.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I noticed, you have both girls and boys.
Yes.
And sometimes I really enjoy watching the guys, who are amazing
Yeah.
dancers, if they're given the space to do that. Talk about, what your recruitment efforts and how do you get young people involved in the program?
Absolutely. So our kids, we know that they're on their TikToks and their Instagrams, and so we try to keep it as fresh as possible on our social media fronts. We know what they want to see, and we know what their parents want to see. So we show opportunities where we train and we teach them our core values, but then we also know how to have fun. And I think that the components of us having fun is what draws the youth initially. And then we're like, look, we have fun because we work hard and we play hard. And so then after we get them in and into our system, they're okay with working hard because they know they're going to have fun learning their craft. So our recruitment efforts are easily done on social media, but we've also been out to career days, and we've also done performances in Ward 7 and 8. And every time they give us a call from any museum, we show up, we're there, we perform. And so we're very heavily involved with our community. We do community days, we perform at churches, and we just have a good time, and people notice that we're having a good time, and we show out good technique. And so parents are ready to sign their kids up.
That's what I like, is the technique, because when you
Yes.
see, that many young people on stage together, still, very, very synchronized, it shows that they're listening
Yes.
to the teachers, but your instructors. And how many instructors do you have?
I would say we have about 16. We have
Okay.
16 instructors
Okay.
in Maryland.
Right. And you mentioned the fact that, you perform where the community asks. So what does that look like if someone was having an event, they wanted your group to perform? How does that work?
So there is actually a link on our website where if you're interested in booking, you can contact us via email, management@neemadancecollective.com. That's our business manager. She's actually my mom, one of my inspirations. And my mom will get the emails and she'll okay it and she'll book us for those events. But yeah, that's the best way to do it, is to send us an email and we'll respond and we'll make sure that the kids are there and I'm there and we're participating.
Do you have anything coming up? Any performances coming up that the community could come out and support?
Absolutely. So we have a huge performance every spring, and this year we'll be returning to the illustrious Crampton Auditorium at the Howard University. And we, pack the house. We sell out all those tickets. This year, our dance concert is called Crown, and we are representing our beautiful Black and brown children. We want them to know that they come from royalty, they are royalty, and we encourage our kings and queens to walk in their royalty. And, we spread all of the amazing things that they are doing. We love sharing their technique and what they've been working on all spring. So that is our biggest thing that is coming up, will be the June dance concert at Crampton Auditorium.
Okay, and is there a cost?
Yes, there is a cost. We have not released those costs yet.
Okay.
Our tickets typically go on sale March 29th, which is my birthday. So,
Okay.
yeah, we keep the tickets affordable. We invite all of our grandmas and the babies. Everybody can come to the dance concert. It's a really good time. So we hope to see some audience members there.
And if someone's watching and they have a young person at home that has never danced before, but they
Yes.
just think, oh, let me get them involved in this. What are your requirements for participation in the program?
We require our parents to be as involved as possible from start to finish. We require them to come with an open heart. We require them to come ready to learn, willing to be disciplined, willing to be focused, and ready to have fun and learn their craft. So our registration is ongoing up till February 1st. And again, we take children beginning at 15 months. If they can walk, they can dance. So it's never too early to start for us.
And how, this is something I really wanted to touch on a little bit earlier, because I think a lot of activities that we get our young people in early, whether they be athletics or the arts or whatever it might be, it's all about building confidence.
Yeah.
And, tell me if, an example, if you have one of, maybe a young person that came in that just was, you could see the star in them, but they didn't see the star in themselves. And how do you build that confidence in these young people?
Yeah. So I have quite a few kiddos that come in and they're really shy and they're really reserved. And it's up to me and their teachers to, point out if that's a part of their personality, or, if there's something deeper that may, cause them to be more internal. And so we offer open space. A lot of times I'll have a powwow with my dancers and I let them talk freely. For these kids in this generation, when they feel good, they respond to us and they dance well and they respond to training. So I'll have a powwow with them and say, hey, what's going on in school? Or hey, what's going on at home? Or how are you feeling about a thing? And we have that conversation and they're up there dancing. Sometimes I make them journal and we'll write in our journals what are our dance goals. And some of those shy kids, what's your name? Stand up. Talk, speak loud, hold your chest up, hold your chin up, and then tell Miss Grace what's in your journal. I want to work on my passe. I want to work on my coupe. I want to work on my splits. That is the initiation to get them out of their shell, to help them, build leadership and feel confident about themselves, hearing their own speaking voice. You'd be surprised. Them getting comfortable with having a mic in their hand when we have our recitals, things like that, all help build their confidence. So that shy kid that I had at age 7, she's telling everybody what to do at age 17 and helping me check in kids at the front door and helping me put merch in the bags and things like that. So I've seen that growth in a lot of our students. And I use some of those techniques still today.
And is there any comparison between, sort of the growth in confidence that transfers over to stories they may tell you about what's going on in the classroom?
Definitely. Especially in my littles. They'll tell me small things like, Miss Grace, I was the line leader today. And I said, you were picked to be the line leader? No, I raised my hand. So even my own child, she said, Mommy, I was the best one in class today. And normally she could be reserved. So I get those stories all the time. Some simple things. I got to be the snack person in charge, or, I was selected to to say my speech in front of the whole 9th grade, or I got selected for an audition because I was able to speak up. So I love hearing those stories, especially when they come in with that acceptance letter from that Debbie Allen or that Dance Theater Harlem, the same places that I've been. Those are the success stories that we love to hear.
So they move on from Neema on to other opportunities that are even outside of the DMV.
That's right.
That's wonderful. So tell us again, I mean, how, if there are parents out there or young people out there looking and listening and they want to join or at least explore what it would be like to be a part of Neema, how to do so. And also, I assume that, you're always in a fundraising mode as well to support the organization. Always. So in both, can you just share how people can be supportive?
Absolutely. So first things first, we're big on social media. You can follow us on Instagram at Neema Dance Collective. You can follow us on TikTok at Neema Dance Collective and Facebook at Neema Dance Collective. You can also go to our website. Our website is going to list all of our offerings each season. We're soon going to be posting those summer camps, which everybody has been blowing up our inbox about because everybody wants summer camp and dance intensive placement, audition prep, things like that. All of that can be found on our website, neemadancecollective.com. If you want to see any media like the video that was displayed, that is under our press page. And like I said, we accept students for the spring season up until February 1st. There's a donate button on our homepage. There are children, especially siblings, and I have a lot of twins, multiple children under the same roof at the same age that come to the studio in need of tuition assistance. Anybody can make a donation. That button is always working, always available right on the homepage of our website.
Wonderful. Grace Johnson, founder and artistic director of Neema Dance Collective. Thank you so very much for being with us. Thank you for what you do and the difference that you're making in our community and showing all these beautiful flowers that have so much to give. So I appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Have a good one.
You too.
So we're going to now transfer, actually talking about young folks and talking about, flowers and growing our community and what we need to do. We've got a major election coming up this year. And we certainly are happy to bring on our next guest. And before we jump into this conversation, I'd like to show this video before we talk to our guest, Marcus Batchelor. We don't have a video for you, Marcus, huh?
All good. More time to talk, right?
That's right. That's good, right? Because sometimes we need like pictures and what have you to get people to understand where we are and how important this moment is. Mm-hmm. But we'll get plenty of those because the news is reporting it every single night as we watch these primary caucuses going on around the country. But you're the National Political Director of People for the American Way. So tell us, what that's all about. What is People for the American Way, and what role are you playing in this upcoming election?
Yeah, so People for the American Way is a national advocacy organization focused on protecting what we like to categorize as truth, justice, and the American way. Our right to live in a free society where our children have access to quality education, where they can learn our true history, where our communities are both safe and just, where the laws protect our individual freedoms and rights. And the American way we encapsulate as really the ever-growing movement to expand our democracy and really preserving the ability for us to preserve our democracy. We know we've got unprecedented attacks rooted in authoritarianism, rooted in racism. And so our job in terms of protecting our democracy is central to the focus at People for the American Way. And we do that in a couple ways. One is by building coalitions. We organize Black pastors across the country to protect the right to vote and move their residents and their congregations to the polls. We organize young elected officials under the age of 35 from local school boards all the way to the United States Congress to advance legislation that protects those rights. We're working with grandparents around the country to advocate and organize against book bans and attacks on local institutions like school boards, where we know is a battleground for the right to protect, the right to learn. So we're doing all of that work. We've been doing all of that work in the lead up to 2024, but we know both kind of in rhetoric and in practice, the real battleground for all of those issues is happening in November. And so we're gearing up to be across the country to organize those networks, to make clear what the stakes are in this election, and get our folks to the polls to keep Donald Trump out of the White House.
You know, I'm going to go off script a little bit because, I've known you since you were a student at Thurgood Marshall Public Charter School. Mm-hmm. And even as a middle school, high school student, you have always been engaged. We talk about young people who danced all their lives or people who want to be architects, but your path has always been politics. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to know kind of, and you're from DC, grew up in Ward 8, where we have sort of the lowest voting turnout in the city, mm-hmm. But you run for office, you're running for office. Mm-hmm. But what is it about politics that, that keeps you going, that keeps you, engaged and wanting to, get more people into the pool?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One of it is just a good example. I mean, it's hard to not, when you live off of Martin Luther King Avenue and go to a school named after Martin Luther King and your barbershop's named after Martin Luther King. It's hard for some of that activism not to rub off, but also, I mean, better than most, kind of DC being an example of Black political power, and the fact that I got to grow up and see myself in the process was very important. And so I think good example of earnest activism, of always working in the interest of community, but also in the interest of justice, is just something that I got to see firsthand. But second, I also got the opportunity to be a part of it. And so, I think it's really important that we continue to create avenues for young people to be engaged. I was an active member of Young Democrats, but I also got to, run in the Ward 8 Democrats when I was 19 or 20 years old and run for office, when I was practically a teenager for the first time. And so, having communities open and showing young people that they can be a part of the process is more important now more than ever, I think.
So we just had recently this week the Iowa caucus
Yes.
on Monday, freezing cold weather, but folks still got out there and did their thing. We're moving towards New Hampshire and then South Carolina. How would you sort of explain to folks, the impact of what's happening in these races and why, like, the ultimate goal, as you said, in November, what we need to be watching, paying attention to, and engaging in?
Yeah, so finally the races have started. I think they've been long anticipated, but I think what we've been seeing in the early contests, especially in Iowa, is that kind of the conclusion we assumed 6 months ago, a year ago, still stays the same, that Donald Trump will likely be the Republican nominee again for president of the United States. And that really makes the stakes very clear. He's been abundantly clear about what he wants to do when he gets into the White House. He said he wants to be a dictator for the day. Him and his acolytes have talked very publicly about running the largest deportation program in the country's history, eyeing 10 million undocumented folks for arrest and deportation. He's talked about sending troops into majority Black cities to quell violence and crime. He's talked about the president needing absolute immunity to do whatever he or she wants to do, and not being susceptible to prosecution or accountability for that, either in office or afterwards. And so when we talk about the stakes in this election, as much as we need to focus on the kitchen table issues, how the economy is working for people, how we're supporting people who are working class and poor, we also need to make clear the stakes that this isn't a regular election, that this is democracy or not, that they are not being coy about their intentions, and they are serious. And so we need to make those stakes clear and move our people to the polls as urgently as possible.
So how are you doing that? I mean, how are you getting the message out for people to understand what these threats to democracy, that they're right now they're threats. They could become reality. So
Yeah.
what is the organization doing, the People for American Way doing to counteract these threats?
Well, I will say, I think that they are, and maybe threats is probably too soft a word for what's happening here. There are active assaults on our democracy. I mean, we saw, in 2013, a year after President Obama was elected, the Supreme Court strike down major provisions of the Voting Rights Act. And we've seen since, state by state, states literally shred away people's access to the ballot. So we're not just talking about having to mobilize and get our people to the polls. We're also talking about protecting their right to vote when they get there. And even though 2023 was not an election year, we saw 14 states pass voter suppression legislation. We saw over 70 lawsuits against those states to protect the right to vote. So there's an active assault on the right to vote, and People for the American Way is in that fight. We're urging President Biden to get as many pro-democracy minded justices appointed to the federal bench as quickly as possible. We are working with, we're working to elect folks like in Virginia. We spent a lot of time in Virginia last year, and because they have a Democratic majority, they were able to beat back Republican legislation to actually restrict early voting in the Commonwealth. And so we have to continue to do that work. And those assaults will get, I think, even more intense over the next several months. And so we've got to be vigilant. And we also, I'll just say, lastly, spend a lot of time educating folks on what the far right is doing. We run a online publication called Right Wing Watch that exposes the far right's attacks that sometimes go under the radar. And so we'll spend a lot of time also pushing that news to the folks who need it most, so that the stakes and the threats are clear.
There are those that are actually actively engaged in the political arena right now. The pro-Trump folks, I mean, they're serious.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some who are, I think, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but appears to be more lighthearted folks who are pro-Democrat, pro-Biden, and a whole bunch of folks, particularly young people, who are saying, "Look, I'm done."
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, particularly to that third group of folk,
Mm-hmm.
to get them really more conscious about why this election is so crucial? I mean, you've outlined it, but the message isn't coming across.
Yeah, it's something that we grapple with every day as an organization, how we organize communities, how we come up with messages that people get and that resonate. And the fact is, because democracy hasn't worked for so many, because so many people have struggled just to access the ballot, because so many people have voted and still seen their rights, chipped away at, it doesn't seem like the process is working. And to a certain degree, right, this Congress is less functional than most in American history in terms of the number of bills they passed. And so voters aren't wrong to some degree, but not participating is a vote. Not voting is a vote, and it's not just a choice between kind of the lesser of two evils. It really is the choice between, like I said, the opportunity to get all of the problems right again. Donald Trump is very clear that he wants ultimate authority in this country, and it's rooted in racism, it's rooted in suppression, it's rooted in subjugation, and if we allow him to get back into the White House, all of those kitchen table issues, all of those economic issues, all of the foreign policy issues that keep me as a young voter up at night, we don't get an opportunity to solve those things. And so we've got to just make clear that the stakes aren't binary, right? They aren't, they aren't balanced. This isn't about kind of a balanced choice. This is about defending all that we have and the opportunity to build a brighter future that we want. And so that's the message I know we'll be taking to young voters as well.
So I know we're kind of running out of time, but I think for those who are very clear about who Trump is and what he stands for, and why they would not want him possibly to be their next president. Mm-hmm. But I think the challenge is getting folks to understand, knowing who Biden is and why they should support, another term. What is it that they are going to get that's any different if the messaging isn't there? So I'm just trying to figure out, as opposed to, I sound like one of those politicians that say, I don't want to talk about Trump. Let's talk about Biden, right. Tell me why I should support him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's clear that President Biden and Vice President Harris have to make the case for reelection. They have to earn reelection. The fact is that poor folks and Black folks don't feel, even while the economy is getting better statistically, even while kind of all of these metrics are improving statistically, some communities aren't feeling it on the ground. And so they're going to have to make the case about why American voters should stick with them for another 4 years. But I don't think that their case is insufficient. I think that they've done transformative work to set the economy in a positive direction. They've appointed more women and more minorities to federal benches than any administration in American history. They're doing earnest work. They're working earnestly to protect voting rights, even though a right-wing Congress is doing everything it can to block progress on that. They created the first ever office on gun violence prevention and are sending folks into communities to help people grapple with an issue that we shouldn't have as a modern and progressive country. And so they have a good case to make, but they do have to go out and make it. It has to be about more than Trump for sure. But we have to, but we can't minimize Trump. I think the one of the risks in this election is that people become numb to Trump's rhetoric, that people become numb to the real threats that he's laying out very plainly for us. And so we've got to make both of those cases at the same time. President Biden's got to do his job. Organizations like ours have to do our job to protect our democracy. And both of those things have to work well at the same time.
Marcus, thank you so much for your input, your perspective, and helping us to understand at least what People for the American Way stands for, and how critical this election is. Yes. Coming up in November. We want to keep our eyes and ears open, and even though those of us in the District of Columbia still feel very disenfranchised, but we still have a role to play in this election. So that's
right. DC, stay here.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for being with us today. And we might want to bring you back. Well, as we said, we know you're engaged in a political fight of your own. So we'll be following that and as well as learning more about what People for the American Way are doing. So thanks a lot for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All righty. Have a good one. So today we've had an insightful conversations that showcase the importance of breaking glass ceilings, building confidence in our youth, and engaging in political discussions around the upcoming 2025 election. Although our guests came from different fields, we noticed a common thread running through today's discussions: the influence of empowerment and the need to overcome barriers in various aspects of life. Each conversation offered a unique perspective, highlighting that breaking glass ceilings, building confidence, and engaging in political discourse are all interconnected. As we close out today's broadcast, we encourage each and every one of you to reflect on the conversations we've had. Think about the barriers you face, the confidence you can nurture in yourself or others, and the role politics plays in shaping the world around us. Remember, change starts with each one of us. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our guest today, Lakisha A. Woods, Grace Johnson, and our political expert, Marcus Batchelor. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, experience, and passion with us. To our wonderful audience, if you'd like to go deeper into any of these topics or connect with our guests, be sure to check out our social media channels for more information. We encourage you to share this broadcast with your friends, family, and colleagues who may benefit from these discussions. And remember, change begins with awareness and dialogue. Let's continue to spark conversations, break barriers, and build a more inclusive future. We'll see you back next week for Let's Talk on WIN TV.